Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome back to the WYL Take Ownership podcast, where we're all about taking ownership of your mental, your economics, and your community. I'm joined here today by David Kalinowski.
Hello.
And Andre Izugu.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the show, y'all. How you guys feeling?
Feeling good.
I'm feeling all right, man.
You powering through, man. You got a cold. We staying away from him, but you powering through. I wanted to, we start the show today on more of a heavier subject, having just witnessed the passing of a lot of heroes in our eyes. Kobe Bryant, 41 years old, 10 a.m. West Coast time, So you guys know what happened, obviously. What I think would be an appropriate way to start it is by, just hearing you guys talk a little bit about what Kobe meant to you. And also, like, what does his passing mean to you? Here a couple of days later.
I think with Kobe Bryant dying, you don't get a chance to really process the impact of people until they have departed, until they have died. And for me, it was surreal in a sense, because he seemed like titanium, and you recall these moments of your childhood that he helped shaped and helped frame, and the work ethic and just the whole cultural zeitgeist of Kobe, like the Mamba mentality or Black Mamba, or even the trash can reference, after Dave Chappelle made that famous Kobe. All this you process while also understanding the realness and finality of death. And, it's really shaking for me. I didn't post anything on social media personally. It's just taking me a while to really kind of grieve a public figure, which they call a parasocial grief, when it's like a celebrity death. And that doesn't make it any less hurtful. So that's my feelings on Kobe Bryant's death.
Yeah, and a quick note, y'all. Obviously giving real resonance and sadness and blessings to the other families that were affected, because it wasn't just Kobe, it wasn't just Gianna or Gigi. It was the Outer Bellies, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And the pilot, and it's just super sad. But Dre, for you.
Listen, man, I'll be honest with you. I was not super excited to talk about Kobe on the podcast, particularly because there's just so much that I feel in regards to this that's so personal. I don't even know if I'm ready to articulate it properly in words. You know what I mean? When I think back to 1996, I was 8 years old, and I started playing basketball. It was that class that really helped me understand, I could probably do that. Him, Allen Iverson, or Carmelo Anthony. I don't mean actually do it like that, but I wanted to be that.
Let me not interrupt you.
Yeah, aspire to be that. Is a better way to put it at?
Nah, I feel you, bro.
Not
I'm
like I can eat them niggas. No.
Anyway, you were inspired by those cats.
I was inspired by them.
Fair.
And it was them in the rivalry, and I was a whole AI guy, and it was, forget LA, but I loved Kobe. I love what he did. He always stepped up to the challenge. And he took out our Nets. He took out our Sixers. He just was eating everybody, eating their lunch, him and Shaq. So I literally watched that happen my entire life, and watched him be such a great person and just a great athlete, and create this Mamba mentality that actually had nothing to just do with basketball, everything to do with how you approach life. Right. And to watch that be something that is taken away from a guy who had 4 daughters and just taken away from this planet just like that in the blink of an eye. I can't. I have nothing really to say on that, but hug your loved ones. Don't take anything for granted, and don't waste your time on stuff that don't matter. Life's too short for it. That's pretty much it, man.
So from my vantage point, I posted something about this on Twitter about feeling like in these moments, this is, as a young black man, wanting to get through a spring without one of our icons dying. And I feel like last year we had to deal with Nipsey. This year we're dealing with Kobe. And, you know, I saw somebody post earlier about like the meaning behind the both of them, right? Nipsey was entrepreneurship and ownership and community. Kobe is family, hard work, dedication, Mamba mentality, as we've all said now. And honestly, these are better words I could put to it right now, a couple of days out, because the day of, I was broken. Like, day of, you know, from first to shock, you're sharing news, misinformation at times. Even like I acknowledged on one of our episodes, like, you know, you're just hearing stuff on Twitter and you're like, yo, this is what's happening, right? And so you're almost like shocked for information that's not even real.
You sending me
Rick Fox.
I was like, what
first
this?
It was, I'll be real,
life?
Rick Fox being part of it. Sorry, right? Like his family, people talk about him and his daughters died. It's like, that's not what happened, right?
All of Kobe's daughters.
Yeah,
that's what
it was.
Just reporter got not fired, but
put on leave or something.
And that touches somewhat on the hysteria around being first, but also just the tolls emotionally that it can put on people when you're reporting something and you don't have it all vetted out.
Well, let me just for a moment finish on the just the feelings I got initially for it. I know I kind of threw that piece in there, but you know, with Kobe, what's been so interesting is that, you know, first when I got the text, it's crazy. My sister actually called me right when it happened, and I had guests over for the weekend. I'd been working all weekend. I'm like, you know what, like. I didn't see the initial ring. I saw the last ring where her name popped up on the screen. And I looked at and I was like, let me call her right back, right? And within like 2 minutes, I got a text from her and it was like, yo, Kobe just died in a helicopter crash. And it was crazy was that as I looked at it ring that last time, I was like, but what if it's important? Like that crosses our mind, I think, a lot when family calls. It's like, you know, you could be in your own zone or whatever, but you never know what's on the other side of that phone when you pick it up. And so what was crazy was then seeing that text message. I was like, damn, like exactly what I thought. You know, you in my faint back of my mind, I was like, this could be something real, like something serious. It was exactly that. And I couldn't fathom it. It didn't seem real. You know, you're going on Google News, typing in his name, refreshing the page, and what's coming up is LeBron just passed him for third all time in the scoring. And then finally, that one last refresh, boom, TMZ, right? Then I'm seeing it all over Twitter, and it's like 5 people. Then 5, for a whole day, it was 5, till it became 9, and more real information came out. And it's hard to process because, you know, we talk a lot about, for him, it was like the second act. We got to see him show the work ethic. AI shared a really deep story. I grew up, Allen Iverson fan, he was my guy as well, so Kobe was the arch nemesis. We're a generation that grew up playing 2K. Like I playing NBA Live. Like he was my arch nemesis in the game because he would always go off. But it was like, can I control Kobe or contain him? Which you never could. But can I then beat the rest of the team? So like I think for a lot of young men, particularly, or a lot of young sports fans, let me not even just minimize just the men. It was particularly difficult because, you know, he represented everything you wanted to be in the world, right? Hardworking, dedicated. The like bulldog leader, but also a leader, like a team leader. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't selfishness. It was like he would shoot 50 shots, which he did his last game and drop 60, but still the team would win. It was like, what? You know, it's pretty wild, man. But I know you were talking a little bit about just the hysteria around somebody that massive being part of the casualties. You know, yeah. I mean, speak to that a little more.
It disorients you from touching it, but it just makes me wonder, like, where are we at with humanity sometimes? And the internet is a powerful tool. At times, though, we don't understand the responsibility that we have with media in terms of messaging. And to add to the media, like someone immediately tweeted the Colorado incident with Kobe, like right upon his like death, like breaking that at the same time, and it was perturbing. It's like, well, what's the point of that? But then someone else commented, a sports analyst, yeah, thank you, and acknowledged how Kobe would talk about that. You know, he would unpack it, And I think for that, it also showed Kobe's like how human he was, you know, and that you see his greatest moments, but also some of his lowest points too. And no human, no matter how big they are as a celebrity figure, is without, you know, some low points. And just holding on to that and thinking about legacy and like in the larger picture what he really meant. And I think we all celebrate the positive aspects of his life while also saying, yeah, he made mistakes. We all do.
Yeah. I think particularly why it's like it ends up being so troubling, and it's like you wouldn't wish death on anybody else, or some people do. But what's troubling about it is that as Black people, we feel like there's only a few of that represent us to the masses, to the rest of the world, even though we're a large part of the world. And so when we lose someone of the credential status, and I don't mean that in terms of accomplishments or the like from accomplishments perspective purely. I mean that from like this was a brother who didn't go to college but was an intellectual that people respected him for his brain, right? Like this is a dude who spoke 3 languages fluently, was learning German, right? I remember when I was a kid, I was sharing this with you a little bit earlier. You know, the nights when I wasn't supposed to be up this late, but I'd be up this late watching ESPN on Sports Center, and they would always play the Lakers. You know, the games would finish really late in the night, like 1 a.m. And I
Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those are the days. Divac and Pedro Stojakovic and them boys. But you stay up late, you'd watch the press conference at the end, and ESPN would do this thing where he'd be talking, and then an ESPN Deportes writer would raise their hand to ask something in Spanish, and he would just effortlessly start speaking Spanish, and then at that point they'd be like, back to Stuart Scott, right? And you'd be like, yo, what? Was Kobe just speaking Spanish? And like that, like, I love that, you know, I felt particularly weird watching the major networks cover it, because they would do the thing where it's like they call his friend from 9th grade who played basketball with him for 1 semester and say, you know, tell us about Kobe. And I'm sitting there like, yo, what is this about? And I mean, I'm realizing in real time it's about the audience and like the topical nature of who Kobe represents to the general masses. But if you turn to ESPN, that shit got real fast. Like Doc Rivers couldn't speak. I'm watching, you know, him try to speak in real time.
His voice
cracking. Like, yeah, I mean, and he goes and he just reveals a real candid moment where he goes, I now have to leave here and go talk to my team about this. And that shit killed me. Like I was a wreck because I'm like, you know, watching this and the day was so weird. Like I'd be okay for a little bit. I watched. I've never felt so moved, so hurt by someone not in my family or a friend dying. Like I legit, there's like a yellow rag I put on my stove, like just like to dry my hands, dry a pan or a pot. And I was making food, and I went back in the TV room, and I'm like, I don't even watch TV like that, but I'm just glued. And I can't remember what exactly it was. I remember looking at the screen and just like grabbing the yellow like rag and just screaming, just yelling. And I couldn't help it. There was no other release. That just had to come out. And it's funny, like I'm like, in my mind as I'm like bawling, I'm picturing myself outside of myself, watching myself like, what are you doing? Like, why are you so hurt? And it didn't matter. Like this wasn't strategy. This wasn't thought out. This wasn't planned. It just was my natural visceral response. And this was happening once every 45 minutes for the rest of Sunday. So I had my siblings reach out like, yo, how you doing? You okay? And I text them back like, let's not talk today. I just don't have it in me. Like, I just don't, you know? So,
I mean, I'm just going to jump in here real quick because, you know, when Gozi was calling you, I was actually with Iffy.
These are our siblings. Yeah.
And my daughter at the time. We were coming home in Florida to play in the jacuzzi. Like, it was a great day, bruh. And she broke the news to us, bruh. Through that group text. It was like, y'all, Kobe died. As we're like driving, having I don't remember what the topic was. It was a great conversation, and my kids in the back seat, completely unaware of what's going on, and we had to like put on this fake face of still keeping up with the greatness of the day because there's 5-year-olds in the back who's gonna be like, what's wrong with y'all? Yeah. So I literally watched Iffy just like hold her face And like we're like literally trying to engage with each other. We're all on this thread, like, yo, what's going on? And you're right, we're refreshing it, and all of a sudden, it was dead ass real that Kobe was dead. But we had to like kind of get back and still kind of play Kate to the fact that, yo, my whole 5-year-old is here and enjoying her time with her aunt and her dad. We can't all of a sudden just break down in tears in front of her, like at all. Like if we break down in tears, then she's crying. What's going on? So like literally, we're holding in that same emotion that you felt when you screamed in that rag until we were able to kind of like decompress it later on that evening. But it still felt so unreal, like entirely unreal. But and in that moment, that evening, before I flew back here, I remember hugging my daughter so tight and like, Dad's gonna see you in another week. I'll be right down, and remembering that, yo, like, Kobe has kids around the same exact age, bro, that don't have a dad anymore. And I was about to hop on a plane about an hour after I found out this news. It was just a terrible end to a beautiful weekend that just kind of just a nightmare that we still can't wake up from. Like it's
so you touched on a point about like how as a collective of adults, you had to put on a face for your child, right? To make sure that she still is present and doesn't feel like life's in harm or anything like that or in danger. I think that, so I'm big on like what fucks me up in these moments is weirdly never like the news. It's how all the peripheral pieces of their life respond to it. So when I see Shaq get on TV and talk about it, like when I see like just like when I was hearing stories about like Jeannie Buss when she was having a problem with the Lakers, this was their employee. Her calling him to be like, yo, how do I figure this out, Kobe? Like when I'm hearing those things, those are the devastating pieces, because it's like that's where the empathy for me kicks in on a whole nother level, because from the empath part of me, I feel that I can put myself in those shoes. And so what I really feared for in that moment of finding out that information was how does Vanessa respond to this, his wife? Right? You have 3 other daughters at home. You just had another child. You have to be real, because there's no, like I said, even from I'm periphery, right? I'm a fan watching. I couldn't help but scream. You live with him. You've been with him since you were 17 years old. This is your entire life. This is family. And a big chunk of it is gone right now. What does that look like, having those conversations or being real in front of your children?
I'll be honest with you, you're 100% real. You feel all the feels, you give all the emotions, because kids ain't stupid. They know what's going on. They know when you're hurt. They know they understand that pain. The reason why I know I had to swallow for my 5-year-old, because it's not someone she actually knew that had passed away. And it's hard to really try to break down to a 5-year-old. Daddy's inspirational basketball player died, sweetheart, so give me a minute. You know what I mean? So it was more so in Vanessa's point of view, they all lost someone. So we're all gonna cry. We're all gonna cry together, and we're all gonna figure this out. That's a little different. I think,
and I guess like what I mean more is like because the idea, and Anderson Cooper talked about this on CNN, right? Like how when his father passed when he was 10, his mom was pretty much like talked about the idea that one step before the next. And that's how you have to get through every day, because the sun still rises. And so what I mean is I was saying, I was talking to a couple of friends, and I was like, I just hope that she gets to like, I don't know, some kind of watch, but can get to like leave for like a week or two, just go on a trip somewhere and just scream, just be all the things, because not be super mom for 1 second, because like it's not the day, because that she's going through shock too, like she's crying certainly, but it's more like what in the hell just happened. But like day 7, day 24, day 91, those random moments, this drink was his favorite drink, and boom, I'm broken on the floor in the kitchen crying. He used to complain when I'd be in the supermarket too long, and boom, now I'm broken. Or he loved tuning in to my whatever, and now he those moments, I mean, like just to be able to be so raw and real and unfiltered and in front of kids, you kind of always, there is some level of like I have to protect them, right? No matter how. So that's what I'm kind of getting at. But
I mean, and just speaking to what I know from studying grief and bereavement, like from a mental health aspect, that's natural. All those things you just detailed, for like 6 months up to a year, and even every year after that may hurt less and less. But grief and bereavement, especially during those first 6 months to a year, it may just pop out of nowhere. It may just be a sensation of a smell or a sound, or thinking you're hearing that person's voice or their warm body like by your bed. All these things can trigger, heavy sense of emotional like output, and that's natural. And complicated grief, they say, is anything that like lasts over a year, just by what the studies show. And hopefully she adjusts, because that's the other part about grief, is adapting to life, adapting to a new life. It's not like he's there anymore, obviously, but how do you adjust and adapt to live life normally, post what you used to share with this person that you built a life with? It's not easy for any person to figure out, whether you're a celebrity or
drive you crazy.
Yeah,
like the person you spent the majority of your life with is now gone. Your companion, your confidant, the person that you slept next to every night is now gone. And you're
for all them kids,
for all those families, not just Kobe, but like
two
like
kids that have no parents and no sisters. Like, it's crazy.
Pulling up to the driveway,
and along with one of her
back to
kids as
school,
well. So
holidays.
It's just like, nah, man, that would drive anybody crazy.
Yeah.
And holidays are the worst too, because it's like,
Brother.
that's when you're around everybody.
Birthdays, holidays, all of it.
Yeah, those special moments, special occasions are particularly painful, especially as we get older and we lose our own members of our families. Because things aren't ever going to be the same. And that's just a process of life. Not to say it so whimsically, but, just the reality of how humanity goes.
Yeah.
And cherishing the precious moments, precious time. That's what we can't get back.
Keeping in alignment with everything going on, I think we should give a moment of silence to not only Kobe, but also the families that have been affected. And so appreciate it if y'all would join me in that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, with everything being so deep, so heavy, and I've already, I'd be remiss to not recognize or take point to notice that I've already been kind of in this mindset of thinking in terms of growth and where I want to be and how my life is kind of mapping out. And, moments like this with Kobe and with all the families affected makes you think a lot about what's next. What does that next chapter look like? So obviously today we were coming here to speak on a very light topic, but we couldn't not acknowledge and talk about, our mental state and how we feel based on what just happened, and so from that vantage point, the topic is part 2, Black men dating, right? And I think there is a proper transition here. I think, the reason why I say that is because that kind of moment makes you think about life from a whole deeper lens.
Like, what do you mean?
What I mean by that is, Kobe was the quintessential person a lot of us strive to be or want to be in the future. Hardworking, a great father, and a tactician at what we do as a profession, right? He was all those things embodied. He was creative. He was logical. I love that marrying of the two. I crave that in life. And so, it's made me think about a lot of things. And when I think about dating, I know I've not dated seriously for a long time in my life, my whole life. I've never really dated seriously. Fran's looking at me off stage, like off camera. I feel like, honestly, this has made me think about being more mindful with how I approach that. And hopefully, I genuinely mean this, finding the person I'm supposed to be with, hopefully through my life this year. I'm thinking 2020, maybe it will be the year. I've never said that out loud, but, I think you put something in the air and God be listening and feeling. Well, look, Franz is shaking his head.
What do you mean by serious, though?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question.
I need a drink.
And already, fair enough. I probably need one too, but I'm probably going to answer it first. So, I think serious in terms of, I think you're to that question. I have dated people seriously before. I think I don't enter relationships unless I really see myself being able to marry this person. I've always felt that way, even in high school. Maybe it's weird, but for that reason, I wasn't in a bunch of serious relationships growing up. I think what I mean is, like, starting to think less about the now. Like I realize this about the way I approach relationships, or you know, even deeper, the way I explain who I'm dating to my friends and my family. I tend to credentialize people. So if I meet someone amazing, I'm telling you, what their job is, but in a nuanced way, right? Because I'm too deep for that.
Right.
So it becomes, they're connected to the arts. They could legit be a painter. They could be actress. They could be whatever, right? Yeah. I talk about what they've achieved. I talk about all these things that I actually personally don't care about. Like I'm really big on the person, but what I'll do is if I can rationalize and credentialize this person to somebody important, to me it makes a little bit more sense to be with them full on, right?
Can I jump into I think why you think that way? Yeah. Because a lot of how we were raised in terms of how to look for someone to be with was based off of who could be the best partner for you in this place called life.
You're 1,000%
and it has
right.
a lot to do with how they handle finances, how they're able to, be a number two in terms of what you need to achieve your goals in life. Who can be the strong family structure.
But the reason why it's interesting, because I feel that way, but I would also I push back on myself for even saying that, because I explain. That's why I guess I nuanced it. I explain that to my peers, my family in one way, but I've dated people that I probably had no business really dating seriously, So from that vantage point, it wasn't even about their credentials. That was an easy way to explain who they were, but emotionally they had my heart, right? I was attached to them. I was connected to them. And so I think when I say seriously to your question, it's actually being more mindful even of, but like fuck credentials, right? But more mindful of the person. Can I be a partner with this person long term? And starting to really analyze, what does it look like for us to, I love the millennial movement of, we get married and we're kicking it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, like vacationing and just working together, owning a couple cribs or whatever the case. I think millennials have started to take longer to have kids once they get married. I appreciate that, because
longer to settle on a partner too.
Facts, and that's all facts, like actual facts, right? And our marriages actually last longer. That's another can't say numbers wise, but where our divorce rate is lower for the age we are. Right,
because you're getting married
later and less, which usually means a little bit more focus on why you're getting married.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, when I think about that, I want to be very strategic in terms of my own life. I want to be with someone who fulfills, someone that I want to allow, because it's part of a partnership, and step back as they grow and support them, and vice versa. Right. I want to love the growing woman I see in front of me. And I keep tapping the table, so our producer's telling us I'm crazy. But that's what I mean. You know what I'm saying? And I guess when I say serious, is being more mindful actually of longevity, somebody you can actually be a partner with, to your point, versus just a love interest for sometimes right now.
Man, I will. It's funny that you approach it in that manner, because how you initially said that you looked at women in terms of justifying them as a partner to your family. That's obviously what I did, and it didn't work in the long term. And it's so crazy to think on the dynamic shift. I don't think anyone here knew what Mercedes did until y'all asked her yourself. Fair. Months later. Wait, what do you do? Yeah. And it was oh yeah, babe. I mean, you could tell him. You can tell him what you do, but because everything about that relationship had everything to do with just the realness of who we were to each other in high school, who we were to each other as we were becoming adults, and who we clearly are to each other now. Mm-hmm. It was so much history that had nothing to do with what people judge people on now to determine whether or not you are valued of my time in this millennial space. And all of that is why it sticks so much now that this is what it is. But it would have never stuck like this if we had tried it in high school, or if we tried it in our early 20s. You know what I mean? It was something that has clearly rooted in maturity. So I love that now you are in your late 20s, you're coming to this understanding and not making the mistakes I made in the early 20s. Granted, I pause on mistakes, because I don't think anything I did was a mistake. Right. Everything I did was a learning experience that allowed me to be the person that I am today, to be the person I am in my relationship today, who I wouldn't have been if I didn't have every single experience that I had. So I love being a divorcee. You know, I read that as a badge of honor.
That
you
sounds,
know what I mean? Shoot.
Sounds quite fancy, I'll say.
Right.
Like,
It sounds French as shit.
Sounds quite fancy. Oh,
Beignet, divorce,
Right.
sachet away. That's
Shay away.
acknowledgement to
I'll
RuPaul.
say at the very least, I'll give you that. It sounds fancy.
I think also when discussing dating and seriously dating, since we added that, right? It's hard to discount the environment. New York City is not the typical environment. You know, everything is moving and there's barely a chance to slow down, barely enough hours in the day to get the work done, let alone have self-care and also like really be attentive to your partner. And it's very challenging, especially as this all somewhat ties into economics and capitalism too. Just of like when you're trying to earn to build like this secure life for a partner or measure up, I think we're so caught up in
That.
we're so influenced by media and like what we need to obtain to be whole for someone. Like, do you have a house yet? Do you have a car? Well, what happened to just like living in New York and most people don't have cars?
Check it out.
Or, you know, degrees, your income. It's, at least for me, I'm just speaking for me, all these things really toll about in my mind in terms of like, I'm not where I fully would like to be for a person. And I know a lot of my energy and focus right now in terms of serious dating is like, in a way, seriously dating like my career and what I'm trying to establish.
Sure.
And it doesn't necessarily lend itself to an intimate relationship at this point. I don't
ask you a
discourage
question
that.
about
Sure. Yeah.
About your statement, like, so when you say you're not in a space where you feel you can date seriously, are you referring more of your mental state or just your overall economic state?
My mental state.
Your mental state. Okay.
The economic state, I just had a discuss. I was just on a date this Saturday rather, and it's the first time it's happened to me in life. But
Getting good up.
the young lady, we went out to dinner.
Sometimes, you know.
I mean, he
life
said
is
it never
pretty rough.
happened to him in life.
Oh, so
No, it never.
I mean,
Truly.
I'm sorry.
Never happened to me in life, but
You
this
never
is
couldn't
our
get it up in life?
first time. No, this. Let me explain.
Superhuman out here.
I know.
David!
I'm up right now.
It was our first time getting food together, like a sit down dinner, and
Sorry.
we were coming from the Met Museum. It was a nice time, and went to get food up at Harlem Tavern. Really giving the details here, and by the time the waiter,
Shout out to Harlem Tavern.
by the time the waiter
Great
gives
wings.
the check, she hands it to me, female waiter, mind you, and I'm dating a female too, just to let you know my heteronormativity. And I'm like, should we go Dutch on this?
Stephen A. Smith over here.
Cool with that? Because we got similar meals.
Sorry.
We got similar meals.
The
So,
build up is so epic. I'm just waiting
This
for
is
the drop.
epic.
well, so she's like, cool. We'll just go half. Then
No hesitation.
about 20 minutes. Well, I'm the one that encouraged, like, let's just go Dutch.
Yeah.
So,
Before the date or on the date?
Was on
it
the date.
established
On the date.
Before the date.
On
Hey,
the
we can
date.
go Dutch out when we go.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, psycho to like
Yeah, that's a little
say,
weird.
let's go. We're going Dutch, right?
I've been out the game for a little bit.
Okay.
Continue.
I just look really cheap if that happens, but I'm just like, this is like,
Preemptively. Let's go Dutch.
Yeah. We're going Dutch, by the way, right? No, I've been doing that. That's been my whole like life
wow.
practice.
Yeah.
Hey, if it works, you know.
So we go out to dance later at the Shrine in Harlem, and before we step in there, she's just like, I just want to know what your philosophy is on dating.
And very quickly, my man has just a magical Harlem journey brewing here. I'm just like,
Yeah, it was really an uptown thing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and this is all one day.
A beautiful like date. Yeah, started at the museum, then went to get food, then went to dance.
So what is your philosophy on that?
Well,
You are.
I was like,
let's hear this philosophy.
Please unpack. What do you mean? I can't really pull out what you're saying. It's like, I've never been with guys like that haven't like offered to pay on the first date. And I was like,
it's on the date.
I knew that was where we're going, bro.
I got like mid swing and then it's like, yo, I just never really like what was.
Well, I was like,
because she anticipated.
I was like, to be honest, I don't subscribe to those tropes of like. I don't subscribe to those tropes of like hegemonic fiscal things. And for her, it was like complicated. She's like, I understand because as a feminist, like it's I don't know where I stand with that. She brought out the word feminist, not I. But I was like, no, I don't subscribe to like those fiscal responsibilities of like what a male should do and what a woman should do. Push come to shove, we can articulate that and discuss it. But my mom never raised me to like really go out my way to like standard, like as a standard you always pay for the first date.
And this was the first date when you went Dutch. Man, so to my understanding, all right, from my point of view, even as a dude, right, it comes across as, oh, he cheap, even though, bruh, obviously, I'm cheap for real. But in that space, in the first date,
I'm cheap as fuck.
Well, hold up. When you're trying to put your best foot forward, which is usually the ambiance of a first date, and your best foot is, so you paying for your meal and I'm paying for mine. That's that way. Hold up, this nigga gonna be a problem.
You put a club foot out.
There's that perspective, but there's also like, look, I'm showing you my cards right at the front.
Yeah,
all right. I don't want to play the smoke and mirrors game of like. Then we have to have these awkward expectations. The second date, like, oh God, I gotta pay for it. Does she think I'm gonna pay for it the second time?
That's where communication is so key.
So now I'll speak to that a little.
Well, I communicated.
No, you did.
Pull out your credit card,
moment, though, as opposed to like.
Well, not so it's tough, right? So
it wasn't tough for me.
Well, no, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. What I mean is like
tropes.
No, what I mean like you like to your point. You're not gonna say that in a text message planning the date. Like I'm right. Like, and so what happens is the action happens. You make your call on it. Afterwards, you're asked about it. You explain your reasoning behind it. And so like I think from that vantage point, it's like. That's where the communication comes in. Like if you then at that point, if she asked you that and you were like, nah, I just prefer not to talk about it, or nah, bitch, pay for your shit. Like if it was that energy, that's very different than like, no, this is my fiscal philosophy. And it's real. I'm not laughing. I'm just I'm laughing at the like intellectual. Educational approach you took in breaking it down to her on the dance floor.
Which seemed disingenuous when you.
It didn't seem disingenuous
because then she pulls out feminists and.
Yeah, call the spades. Like let's reveal your cards.
That's a lot of energy going.
She said I struggle with that as a feminist. Sorry to cut your point off, but like, if I am, the point of feminism is for all things to be equal.
For her to have Dutch, yeah.
Or for all things to be equal. Literally going Dutch.
Right.
Equal.
That's literally the point of being feminist.
It's a direct contradiction. I'm not out here calling a spade, but it is cognitive dissonance with your philosophy morally if you're saying, I'm a feminist, but you as the man, you should be paying, like, for the first date. Mm-hmm. That's something that could be, and also just to like set the record clear.
Question also, did you smash that night or ever with this girl?
No, not that night. No, but we kissed and we like,
But you did end up getting to
that
after
that discussion.
When you're honest, when you're honest, that shit really works.
She said I respect it.
She said I respect it. Salute.
Like, love y'all. Prior to that, we have like fornicated, yes, but
all right, good.
Before y'all had
okay. So you did like
we kind of like reconnected and tried to make it official. But
how long after that date did you get to that point?
Oh well, no, we fornicated way like back in the summertime. Then we like disconnected
before this date.
So this was like a reset.
Oh, you gotta let me know that. That changes a lot of things.
Well, this is like. Trying to take each other seriously of like this is not just
this is your serious dating.
Okay. Serious dating. But you've already have history with this girl to some extent
brief touch.
All right, so that makes more sense. You
Deep
being so
touch.
heavy-handed with the you know.
I mean, it might have been brief, but it was deep.
My mom cannot see this.
The WYL Take Ownership podcast, all about your community. I appreciate the realness. I appreciate you being real, and I appreciate you answering even not the non-host questions because I step in. You got
My bad, bro.
because
now we understand a whole other layer of this because. It seemed like you just found her on Tinder and was like, I was going on a first date. And you're like, oh, no, you're paying for that shit.
Yeah. I appreciate this. So, like, I've...
That's why we're here to be
I'd
real.
say, yeah, a few of the women I've dated, and I mean, when I say dated, I mean in relationships. Let me change that. I've been in relationships with, have been feminists, like hardcore.
This is
very
true.
But have, to the opposite of your point, been very much, and I'm not going to speak for all of them, but have been very much, they tend to lean on, the idea of splitting would be, splitting, not necessarily crazy. The idea that I'm okay to get into a club for free. I'm okay utilizing...
When it leads to their advantage.
Right.
They want to use it.
Right. But when it's not,
I'm
a feminist. So if I cook, you cook.
Right.
There's no middle ground. If I come to your house, you come to my house. Like, I've dealt with that. And I'm not, again, for the women out there that have dated in real relationships, I'm not speaking to all of y'all, but the ones that know who they know who they are. But it's that idea that, like, when it's convenient, I utilize it. When it's not, aren't you a man?
I mean, we all do that in many different situations.
In life. But the thing is, I don't put a label on myself to then box myself in. If I'm going to label myself a feminist, and no disrespect, but if I'm going to label myself that way, there are certain ideas and doctrines that I follow that allow me to move that way. I don't subscribe then the next person to then follow that same thing, and then when they don't, kind of weaponize it against them, even though I don't technically actually deeply believe the same things I'm espousing to the world.
Okay. But don't we also, as a society, do that sometimes with being black, for instance? Like, when it comes to affirmative action or something, I mean, if it's me and this white kid and we both got the same grade, affirmative action, I mean, you had a 20-year head start, bro. I mean, it should be me. Versus in situations where we want an even playing field, whatever. I feel like as a society, we just do that a lot. Where the imbalance is something that we love to play in our favor as much as it can. And when it's not, we want it to be fair and even. It's the idea of capitalism almost. It's kind of how we move. Yeah. So I don't blame them for it. Yeah. Like, we just kind of move around it.
But that's also the idea of, like, I can label that as being affirmative action. Like, I'm black and I want to leverage affirmative action against you, right? If I'm saying if I said I'm affirmative action, then that's how I move through life. True. I want always to tip my balance, right? You labeled a thing. If I label myself a feminist, that means that's how I move through life. Is how it's theoretically supposed to be. That's why I don't live under labels, because I know I'm a human. So I know that there are ideas and thoughts I have that literally counterbalance other ideas and thoughts I have, right? Like, I struggle deeply with the idea of, like, I think about, like, this, and this is going to be serious and, like, then topical at the same time. I think about the idea that Vanessa Bryant was with the same guy since she was 17. So it could actually be that she's only slept with Kobe her entire life, right? Wow. Like, that's how I feel. Like, when I think about, I don't know what that looks like. Even if I say I'm dating seriously, it's time to, like, I don't put to France's, like, eyes off the screen. It's not a matter of putting a time capsule on it. Like, it's the time.
Man. You referenced him a lot today.
Well, France, man, he be giving us energy off screen. I appreciate it always. Always. Cheers up to France. But, like, when I think about that, it's like my energy around, like, even the idea of just being with the same person from here forward, sexually, just starting there is
let me talk about this real quick.
Let me finish my point, because I'd love to hear your point.
Finish it. I'm gonna give you some.
It's still early, right? Fair, but whatever.
Right. But I'll give you some insight.
It's like, again, I think, wow, like, it's just like there's so much lust in this world that even I have. Like, I think that, so that's why what I feel is that my desire to be in something serious, meaning that I want a life partner I can grow with, supersedes the lustful energy of where I'm at, right? That's how I feel. I think I'm transitioning into where that is. Hard, yes. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm going to be perfect. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I know that there's more intentionality, I think, in terms of how I move. So I'm still tripped out on that. I'm still tripped out on what I don't like. Like I think I want a monogamous straight relationship going forward.
And you will.
Whatever.
And you will.
But I think it's gonna take me time
Here's
to
why.
like.
Here's why, brother. I hear you so clearly on that because I've been exactly where you are. You know that. Hell, you've been my brother my whole life. What makes that change? And I'll be totally honest with you. The first thing that really helps you with that, obviously, is just opportunity. If you remove all the temptation,
opportunity,
right, and the opportunity. No, it's facts. But if you remove all the opportunity and your only option to get some is this person that you're with, then yeah, sure, that ends up being, your mind is so conditioned to that. Then that's what it is, because sex and lust is all mental. It's how you perceive things. You can train your mind to see things any way you need to. Yes, you can, Franz. And I will tell you this, for the first time in my life, right? And this is so real. Like, for the first time in my life, I do not necessarily see myself being in a space where lust supersedes my desire for sex. Like, it's so insane, to be honest with you. Like, if it ain't with my girl, I really don't got the time for it. Like, it really doesn't get me there. Like, it doesn't get me to that space. And that's only be out of respect. It's out of the way I know I like it. It's out of the way I know I'm going to get it. And I'm like, the only place I'm going to get it like that is back at home.
But generally speaking though, and you don't have to dive into any
hit me with it. What?
Do you
I
feel
exposed
like
you last time?
Yeah, but do you feel
hit me with it, bro?
He did expose me. So
what you got?
Get him back. Nah.
What you got?
But nah, like, do you feel like also it could be two mistakes you make on that path that then make you realize how important this person is to you?
I love my brother right now.
So I'm gonna give you a lot of
Let's do it.
I'm gonna spread it out.
Now, out of respect for names and people involved, okay. What I will say this is that space where, just to kind of be really clear for the listeners and the viewers, that space has a lot to do with that playful flirting that will never get to where where you're actually having sex, because I'm in a space where I'm not going to have sex with you, but you out here, we're business, we're networking, you want everyone to feel good. So you're in this space where you look single, you look like you out here, but you're really not, and you'll never actually do something. But when that person feels bamboozled or like, wait, hold up, you really don't want this? And you really turn into a different person. And I'm like, no, I got a girl at home. She's pregnant. Like, this is not a thing. It really sets another tone or another level of, I really can't do that no more. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I did learn, where it's like, I cannot be out here looking single, even though I have no intention of having sex, and I don't. But when that person feels like, wait, we were on a path, we were talking about this, we were in this space, everything was going good, and all of a sudden you're like, this is not a thing? I'm like, yeah, no, it's not a thing. You really gotta play the part that you actually are at all times, and that's something I learned.
Let me get your hand, yo. Let me give you a promise ring.
You know what?
He said, "Look,
my bad for tapping the table, Franz, but you know what? I'm gonna let you have that, Mister. I want to be in a monogamous relationship in 2020.
I don't know.
Fuck out of here. Okay.
I want a serious relationship.
All right, you know what? And I honestly want that for you, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, even in my first relationship, having someone that's outside of your immediate family that you can always go to and depend on and really kind of like bounce ideas off of and just really help you grow in life is amazing, bro.
Fair. Nah, it's real.
And, to be honest, I got double that now, because I just have a good relationship with her, even though that's not my girl no more. So I do want that for you, because that shit is, honestly, I don't know what I do.
It looks beautiful, bro. Outside looking in, it looks absolutely beautiful.
I think too.
You joking? No, because Franz over here laughing his ass off.
He laughing. I'm dead serious. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, the connection y'all have. It's beautiful seeing you grow. It's beautiful seeing her grow. Like, it's dope. It's super dope. Yeah.
I think to your point, in terms of like that, the emotional like currency that you build with a person, whether it's just where it's totally not anything like sexual or physical. I think that's what I'm more into right now. Not asexual by any means. I still have like desires, but I think at 28 years of age right now, I just know the impact that sex plays in terms of dating, and it really, unless you're serious about that person to like take it to a seriously dating, I'm almost more avoidant to like engage in like sex now, because I have so much more to gain from emotional investment, I feel, than just that physical euphoria. I mean, I always will crave it and desire it, but I think I'm getting to a point now where I'm looking past that to like something that is ongoing, like here, stimulating. So I think that when I turned 28, like I had already gave up drinking like earlier in at the end of 27, into 28. I think that was part of like my clarity, like not just drinking, but any type of substances, like weed, and I let all of it like just fall back. And in that, we've had discussions on this of just where you come to this realization of what is it that I really want in life and what do I value? Right. And sex right now is not the thing that I value most. And I think it goes back to this most recent date where we tried to rekindle something more seriously, not just sex. And it ultimately didn't work out, and that's okay. Like, it worked out for that moment, but, we further unpacked it and just decided on platonic, like, cutting, of ties.
What you're saying that you're looking for right now, if you're sticking to that, is what makes sex that much better, because it's so mental. So if you have that strong emotional connection with that person, completely outside of everything physical, I mean everything physical, and that relationship with that person is just something that you crave, and y'all have sex, it's just mind-blowing. Doing the most basic, mundane, missionary shit.
Well, it's not something you can force.
Yeah.
You have to just really mentally.
But I will say again, I think we're speaking from a standpoint of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but more infatuation and timing. Like, what I wonder about is 2 years in. What I wonder about is 5 years in. 20 years. What does that look like? And the reason why I mentioned Vanessa at the top of my talk here, my diatribe, was that, I think a lot of times when, and I reference millennials and how we tend to marry now, I feel like if you get to know your partner for 3, 4, 5 years before you ever have a single child, what ends up happening is the child is then, like, that 18 to 27 year gap that you're raising children, right? Like, post it, there was that glimmer of the 5 year that I remember of how I know her, or how she knows, whatever your things, right? And so from that vantage point, there's something to rekindle there that you can restart. When you jump right in, my worry is that 18, 27 years later, whatever, however many kids you have, it's like, I don't know this person anymore. I know my partner. I know my partner in life in terms of tackling issue after issue after issue, kids, finances, whatever, right? But like, what does it look like now at 48? What does it look like now at 56 to like start over now that they're not here, right? And I think about even with my parents, like, the kids are gone. The kids are not there, right? So now you go to work, you come home, and it's y'all. So what does that look like? And if you were, studious and focused, and you built this amazing home, you have 3, 2, 4, 5 bedrooms, whatever, for the kids. Now you come home to that same crib and it's just y'all. And I could talk about it from a statistical standpoint, because I'm in the housing market. I know that behind millennials, the next group that rents more are like baby boomers, because the house is empty. Getting rid of those houses. Leave that house, move back into the city, have a youthful, energetic life.
Passing the house down is dead.
Like, or they still have it, but they move now into a city because they want more energy. They want to dine out. They want to, and maybe that's one of the answers to it, right? That we're seeing happen statistically. But it's like, I think there's different stages of life serve different purposes, and that house in the suburbs, it's not euphemistic for the rest of your life. I think maybe it actually means this is the stage of life we're in.
Raise children.
And you raise children. And then yeah. And so I know we're getting the nod now to kind of wrap things up. So I wanna do kind of bring things to the head. But maybe I'll leave it with this on this point or question. How how are you looking at, as you step, and it's gonna be nuanced questions for both of you guys. So for you, as you step into a layer more serious, right, with the woman in your life, child on the way, right? How do you keep the energy the same between you two now and post the child being here?
Communication.
Okay.
Like, you gotta over communicate, and that's what we do. Even when you don't feel like it, you have to be really clear about your intentions, what you want, what you don't want. You can't ever at any point judge your partner for anything, like how they feel, what they want. Like, who said Will Smith is really idealistic? That was just like, yo, that's so real. Where he said, yo, there's nothing Jada Smith can do that could ever make me want to break up with her. And like, you really think about that. And then I pose it to my relationship with the person that I've known for a very long time. But this is the first time we actually get it to this point. And it moves quick because it comes with a lot of familiarity there, right? But this is something that we've always been doing. It's communicating from we were 13, 14 years old to now. So that things are very clear what we want and what we want to do. So everything is so synced. But there have been times where we kind of lose track a little bit over there. You know that. But we always come back together. Like, in terms of just how we are. And that's when I know that this is it.
To me, that's being committed to the idea of growth, right?
We're committed to growth and committed to each other. And
Exactly.
you're committed to each other. And you always know, like how you were saying, how you can pull back from that previous history of who that person was. And that's why you're with them. Bruh, the reason why it even started again or even became a thing now is because of that memory of who we were as kids together, and that memory of who we were as preteens, or I'm sorry, early young adults, I guess, but like early 20s. And then that understanding of who we are now, we know, yo, this is all we want is each other. Even though we may, have discussions and shit like that, kind of what we want or don't want and things that we disagree on, but we always end with a kiss goodnight and I love you. That does not change. So add a kid to that layer is just something else on growth and us being, the couple that, God willing, could be together 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, and I'll start my question to you with a little bit of pretext. Hopefully you're cool with it. But just like right?
Good luck,
yeah.
brother.
But nah, just like, and just from the standpoint of like, we talked a lot offline, just as homies, about like the idea of when you, the vulnerability, right? Yeah, look at the camera because it's game. But vulnerability, right? You've told me before off camera that like, with vulnerability you struggle with necessarily giving all of that up, right? Because you're fearing, your exact words to me just talking was like, you don't want it to be weaponized against you, right? And I think that, and to be real, you told me that exact. So what was really crazy was I had this conversation with you, and like 3 days or 4 days before that, I had the same conversation with you.
Yep.
So my question to you is, how do you get over that barrier, that mental block that's created, that's real, to allow someone in that you could potentially love or build a life with, what have you? Especially if you're considering you're focusing more on the mental now than the sexual part of it. How does that work for you?
I feel like Chris right now with trying to get my
everybody's
eyebrows,
getting shout outs. Tiffany, shout out to you, CNN,
crispy.
But more importantly, an artist on her own, right? You know what I'm saying?
Let David have his moment, bro.
Vulnerability.
Shout out to you.
So vulnerability, Andre, in your last statement, you said a word that really resonated with me, and I think that's judgment. And for me to not get past that or not let that hold me back is I have to absolve myself from judgment and also judging others. And that's hard practice, like day in and day out, to really just love yourself fully. And it's not like one day, it's a practice.
And as the relationship is, it's a constant, you come together knowing you guys are both imperfect individuals, but you keep choosing each other no matter what.
So as far as getting over the hurdle of vulnerability, I think, again, Andre, you mentioned the word judgment. And I think when you're free of judgment for yourself, that allows yourself some freedom in terms of being okay not having it all together or not having it all figured out, and maybe putting yourself out there more. And I still struggle with it. I still am challenged by it. But as long as I'm willing to acknowledge that and not let vulnerability have the power over me, And this is where I'm at right now. Like mentally, when I go out and I'm thinking about dancing with someone or someone that I think is cute and I'm like a little shy or anxious around because that's not usually my best medium, I'm just like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Would you approach her? Like, just do it. You know? Don't judge yourself too hard, man. Like, we're...
Mama mentality, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
just do it.
that's my approach to vulnerability is just like, man, don't judge yourself so harshly. Be a fair grader.
Right.
Life is hard as it is with as many graders. You should be a fair grader to yourself.
But be aware of cultural differences. I was in South Africa on a dance floor and I approached a woman. She's like, "What the?" They don't really do that close grinding unless
For sure, yeah.
you know them personally. So just
In
be
India,
mindful. Just be
I was in
mindful.
India.
Be yourself.
You see how he tried to do that, like,
So now
soft
you're gonna
flex.
have him thinking about himself. Now he just
I'm
restart
sorry.
this
Nah,
cycle.
that's
Now he's gonna
obviously.
relapse. All
He
that
just-
growth
Nah.
gone.
did the humble
Good
brag
job.
of South Africa, so I had to pull out India.
Oh, I wasn't trying to do that. I actually wasn't trying to do that, but I guess it comes
cultural.
off that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm glad we got to speak on this topic
what are you
because
thinking
from
of?
my because from my vantage point, it's like now and I want to speak just a little bit. My proclamation is that not that I'm trying to or I'm going to find the person I'm supposed to be with the rest of my life this year. It's not my proclamation. My proclamation is simply
This could be
I want to be intentional about how I move. And so in that being the case, I've already been very judicious in who I spend time with. Like I care about people I fuck with. That's it. People in this room, like people I fuck with. And so going forward, it's like
To be fucked
I
with.
don't want to. Cheers to that. Cheers to
to
that.
being
But
fucked with.
but to that point, I'm gonna end right there. Hang with people you fuck with. I think if there's anything Kobe has taught us, it's give time to people who deserve it and who are in your sphere that you need to keep pushing forward and keep supporting. So all love to you all. I appreciate y'all having a real conversation with me about all these things. For David, for Andre, my name is O. Again, WYL Take Ownership podcast, where we take ownership of our mental, our economics, and our community. Take care. Peace.
Peace.